Yeah, I mean, I would just really encourage people to learn the Tax Foundation website stuff, like get financially literate, get really into the idea that no one's going to save you and that you're going to have to pay taxes. Like those are the only two certainties in life are death and taxes. So if you're going to have to pay them, like learn how they work and get yourself set up so that you can build wealth and not go broke.
Justin, welcome
Cam,
back. Welcome back to the Cameron Brown Show, episode number 62. This is
sweet.
fantastic.
That's awesome, man.
What episode were you? Like top
Like 3 or 4,
15, top
maybe
10? Yeah,
something
two.
like way back when.
It's literally over a year and a half ago. That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, glad to have you back on and really looking forward to this episode. Maybe a bit more chill, a bit different than some of the other ones. But I reached out to you recently because I was like, okay, Justin, of the friends that I have that would enjoy this topic probably the most, you're definitely a top 3, if not the number 1. I don't know. I haven't really discussed it with the other people. I just asked you to join me on this podcast tonight. But I've become really concerned about the tax system as of late because everything I see online is people saying they're not going to pay their taxes. And I think people need to be a little bit wary of doing that. But also at the end of the day, maybe they're right. Maybe we should be thinking about why we shouldn't be paying our taxes or how to avoid taxes as best as possible. But to kick things off, please give us a little bit of background as to what you've been up to as of late, and then we'll get the tax conversation going from there.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Definitely been busy over here. What have I been doing? I've got the band still. I don't know if we talked about that last time. So shout out Carl's. We have a couple of shows coming up in Charleston.
Go ahead and drop the shows. Where are the shows at?
One Saturday night, January 31st at Royal American, and the other is at Poorhouse, Charleston, um, February 12th. I think that's like a Thursday. Yeah, just working. I work at a company called Barchart. It's a financial data solutions platform, but most people probably know it as their go-to like stock options commodities data. If you look at like what the price of a stock is, you'll probably end up there. Or if you need news about like any public company, it'll also probably show up there. So I do a lot of journalism for that and work with our big clients to help them write sponsored content.
I perceive it as the epicenter of financial memes.
Yes, so our social media team is amazing. It's really just a couple guys that just like hold down the fort, and
Yeah.
I mean we get retweeted and cited by like Bill Ackman, massive political organizations, like celebrities, like whoever. Like it's a
And
really
Cameron
good.
Brown, I also reshare your stuff all the time.
Yes, you're
Massive
in the
political
you're in that
organization over
finance.
here.
You're in that massive political organization category. So that's a huge, yeah, on the Instagram. That's a shout out to uh I think it's just Rinaldi that does Instagram. Just one guy, Rinaldi.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He fantastic, fantastic guy.
And you are doing your content creation for them, correct? What is your
Content,
actual title?
yeah. So my title is Senior Content Marketing Manager.
Okay.
It's basically split into two parts. Like we try to, on the editorial side, kind of race and try to pick up headlines and get the like first place of a search term of financial news. So one that I got really good was when back in November, December, Michael Burry, the famous Big Short investor, closed his hedge fund and named a successor who's named Phil Clifton. So if you Google who is Phil Clifton, my piece shows up as the first and second, I think, position for that. And I also did like one called I paid for Michael Burry's $400 newsletter so you don't have to. And that got a lot of viral traffic. So that was a lot of fun. And then on the like client side, our big advertisers like you'll see Start Engine on our website, like people like that. I will help write content that explains what they do and then how you can invest in what they're building, and that's a lot of fun as well. So
Love it.
everything's like within the financial market space, but that's obviously crowdfunding, stock market, commodities, and we're like dabbling and getting into crypto, but we don't have a crypto. Like we have some crypto feeds, but we don't have um, as big of a crypto holding as like a crypto specific exchange or something
Right.
like that.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. Glad to hear everything's going well. And if you're a big fan of music in Charleston, South Carolina, go check out Carl's this weekend.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be awesome. It's a fun show too. It's a really fun show. The 4 times I've been to y'all shows, I've been absolutely loving them. So
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's a ton of
keep
fun.
crushing it. Keep crushing it.
We're really trying to get like an act versus just playing music, and I think
Yep.
that resonates pretty well.
Awesome. Y'all are also on Spotify and
Spotify, Apple Music,
all the above.
kind of Instagram, but like definitely stick to Spotify or
So we're
Apple
dropping
Music.
Carl's in the show notes tonight too. A little bit of everything. We'll
Yes,
drop Barchart. We'll drop the Carl's, and I think that'll be about it. But
awesome.
lots of fun stuff going on. Lots of fun stuff going on. So we just on the taxation side of things, when it comes to taxation in general in our country, I know we could start there, but there's kind of an ancient necessity, an ancient taxation of sorts that I think is a good place for us to start as as it relates to us just understanding the origins of taxation. And I think also when I think about taxation, at least the ideal form of taxation is a taxation in which you pay into a system that gives you the proper representation, and you feel as though you're being represented properly by the entity, organization, government, HOA, whoever that governing body is that you're giving money to is actually using that money properly. And the vast majority now, it seems like, of the country does not see themselves being represented properly, which, as we all well know, taxation without representation is what led to the American Revolutionary War. So let's go way back, though, and let's start from the very beginning. Can you kind of give just a, from your research and your knowledge base here, where did taxation start? And then we'll proceed from there. And maybe just a disclaimer too: neither one of us is a tax expert. This is all just personal research, and we're
Yeah,
having fun sharing it with people so that people have a better understanding of what tax actually is and what it's supposed to be at the end of the day.
yeah,
So,
100%. I mean, I think this topic is a lot of fun to research because I mean, yeah, massive disclaimer, I'm not like a tax professional, but I do have an accounting degree and I was an accountant for like a couple of years. Um, but I had nothing to do with any of this. So like, yeah,
but two
definitely.
average Joes talking about taxes after doing our own research and coming to our own conclusions.
Yes, no, I think like from what I found is that like taxes are pretty much as old as civilization in that like there's records in um, from the pharaohs in Egypt that like from 3,000 years ago had like tax keeping records that where they along the Nile River had these markers where they would see how high the river got, and that was important for agriculture, but then it also helped them for tax planning so that they could know how much that pharaoh could tax the citizens. um, and fun fact, the Rosetta Stone, which allowed us to reverse engineer Egyptian hieroglyphics, is a tax document in and of itself. So it's kind of like a record of the taxes owed to, I think it's three different like parts of the Egyptian Empire, and
Okay.
I'm gonna be wrong here, but I think it's like Egyptian, Greek, and then like um, something like a Sumerian cuneiform or something. I don't remember the other language. I should check that out.
This is where it's like fun to like chat GPT while we're doing this too, so we
Oh
can
yes,
double check and make sure. Also, I am curious to know how much chat GPT is lying to us nowadays as well, because
sure.
it seems to be swayed in a certain direction. I shared with you a couple documents
Uh,
earlier on Instagram as it relates to certain organizations swaying certain social media platforms. Maybe I didn't share that with you, but I will share it with you here shortly. But I wonder at what point we're like we search something and it's just completely skewed.
oh yeah, I mean, we talked about
Maybe
that
we're already
earlier.
there. Yeah.
We're there for sure. It's like even in the research for this, which is like a nonpartisan discussion, it still would like um, give you like, hey, if you believe X or Y, but the whole all the research I was doing was trying to ping pong like conservative and more progressive philosophies on tax.
Right.
But there's a just on the Rosetta Stone, it's Egyptian hieroglyphs, Egyptian cursive, and then Greek. So we were able to reverse engineer through Greek.
Love it.
So that's cool.
Alrighty. So let's go from here because I'm currently looking at the Rosetta Stone on ChatGPT. That's where I'm at right now. Yeah, hieroglyphs, Demotic, and Greek. There we go.
So it's giving us the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know at least. It's probably already identified us. So when it comes to people, as of late, especially talking about this, like this reasoning for not wanting to pay taxes, I would just love to know your personal opinion. We can go back into the history of all this in just a moment, but I'd love to know your personal opinion on why you think people in general in this country are so frustrated as of late with the existing tax system.
Yeah, I think from everything I've seen, people are very frustrated because they feel like they don't have a voice, and that when they like vote for a voice, the person that they vote for almost immediately doesn't deliver,
right,
either from what they expected or for what they were campaigning on. So I think it's like, whether it's I really don't believe in the American like military complex and I want my tax dollars to go to like public initiatives, or the inverse of that or whatever. I feel like people are, especially on social media, like obviously very, hey, I asked for X and we're getting Y. And it seems that the data says that that's actually always been the case.
Yeah.
But with social media, with like internet archives, things like that, people can actually look back and say, 2000 was like almost 30 years ago.
Right.
And they can say, oh, over my lifetime, I've been let down the whole time.
Yep.
Or maybe there's some people who are actually like stoked about how everything has turned out the whole time. And I would love to actually get one of those in your podcast.
Yeah, I would love to find one of those people. I think the growing divide though between like the super wealthy and the poor obviously is growing larger. Statistically, we the data is there. We know that. Yeah. And I think the anger level just across the board seems to be heightened and increasing day by day. I think for me personally, when I think about the amount of money that's been printed and introduced into the system since, especially 2008, it's obviously gotten dramatically. Into the money supply has increased dramatically, right? Yep. Mm-hmm. And they continue to increase it, and it's almost as though there's like this hope of collapsing the existing financial system and the model, because it does not make sense. So they have to almost like controlled demolition the existing model. That's what seems to be going on right now. And so whenever somebody says like I'm not paying my taxes, I don't disagree with that anymore at all, because there's a system in which they print money legally, mm-hmm. But it ultimately does not help out anybody else at the end of the day. It just helps out the government to then pay back the banks so that they don't go bankrupt, so they can continue to offer money in this never-ending debt cycle. So when you look at it that way, it is illegal, morally illegal, right, at the end of the day, and we should be addressing it as such. But I think a lot of people are so confused because of how complex it is, and that's almost like the purpose of it, right? Is to have such a complex system that nobody can ever figure out what's going on, and therefore nobody can ever fight it because it is so complex. So you get filled with years and years and years of legal battles that are never ending and never really won. Companies go bankrupt, but people don't go bankrupt because they just hide it under a corporation. And so there's, once again, the layers of complexity that we can't even dive into all of them today, because we frankly don't even have all that knowledge to be able to do so. And that almost seems like the reason for the system being set up the way it is. I say all that to say people are not wrong, in my opinion, anymore. And I'll speak in absolutes here, to think that their tax dollars are going into an endless pit of nothingness, because they are. There's nothing happening for the people now. And especially when you have a setup like in Minneapolis, where your tax dollars are going to organizations that are not using them properly. That's obviously frustrating to a lot of people, but I think that's just like very, very tip of the iceberg. This happens all the time around the country.
Yeah, and there are, I would say, like a few different points that you would have to jump off there. Like one in my research, and I'm obviously part of this, but 98% of Americans do not pass a basic tax literacy test. So even if you're giving them like headlines about, tax dollars being stolen or vote for somebody to do X with taxes, people really don't know. And I think that ignorance obviously masks itself as insecurity,
Yep.
because you say I should know what taxes do and how they work, but they're designed to be confusing. And then so it's like, okay, maybe I have a politician who does vote how I want them to, and then the tax dollars gets like stolen. I mean, that's not even the voters' fault, right? That's
Right.
just like fraud inside the institution.
Right. So how much taxation is legitimate is kind of one of the main questions that we have here. And I think it's something that should be addressed, and who should bear the burden, how much taxation is legitimate, and really what happens when those taxed have no say in how those funds are used at the end of the day. How is society supposed to react? How are people supposed to react?
Yeah, I mean, the natural thing to do is to revolt, but then it's like, what are you like? What are you?
Seems like
What are
the
you?
easy thing to do, right?
What are you revolting against? And then
Yeah.
like, what are you trying to get towards? Right?
Yeah.
Um, like you obviously want museums and you want education and you want all of that, but then do you want the state to provide that? Do you want like the federal level to decide that? Do you want whatever, And then I think it's like if you want everything to be done with your town and local and everything like that, you have to actually hold yourself to a very high standard of
Right.
understanding how your town works. But if it's done at the federal level, you can almost like remove yourself from accountability by saying, well, the big government takes care of that.
Right.
It's also a reasonable, assumption.
And I think there's this part though, for especially for me, in which my views have definitely changed over the years. But I'm okay personally paying a local tax. I'm okay paying a state tax, and I'm okay paying a federal tax, as long as I'm getting out of it what I put into it. And it's actually paying dividends to the country, and it's paying back to the country as a whole to provide services to those that are actually in need. And I think when it comes to like people actually receiving those services that are actually in need is the biggest question here, because from the kind of the more progressive view and angle, the government should be given all of these funds. A very progressive angle should be given all of these funds to do with what they think is right. And it seems as though oftentimes people that are a bit more progressive leaning don't tend to question it as much. But now I'm even starting to see more progressive people start to question it as well, as these things are popping up. And then maybe the more right leaning conservative, approaches, less taxation across the board, but less services in the state and the local government can kind of just handle it at the end of the day too. And that just depends on the kind of conservative and how right leaning you are. But I think from a percentage perspective, there was a time though where a larger percentage of taxation led to prosperous periods of times in our country if done
Mm-hmm.
properly. But also we've seen it where it's led to not so prosperous times in our country as well. So with where we're at currently, how do you feel about an increase in tax or a decrease in tax from where we currently stand? I guess would be a better way to put it.
I mean, I personally feel like we're seeing the results that our tax dollars, of which there are many, are not being used efficiently
Yep.
or maybe properly. So like I don't feel like, okay, so I'm gonna go write like a check to the government in a few weeks, and I just know that that's to stay out of jail. It's like I don't like I don't
Yeah.
feel like,
Not trying to go to jail at this point.
yeah. I know that it's gonna go to wherever. Like I
Yep.
don't see great roads, and I'm not like the consumer experience anywhere is not necessarily getting better. Everything's like a premium price but mediocre experience, and it's like I personally don't feel great.
Yeah. You did some research on the progressive versus conservative contest, and I kind of rambled on there a little bit. But I want to give you a moment to kind of go through what you've looked up and uncovered in regard to the progressive versus conservative contest.
Yeah,
Tax test.
I mean, I think so. We're seeing like there's competing narratives about taxes, and based on this is from Pew, Quinnipiac University, and Gallup data, which kind of like lean left, but are still like big studies. So, summarized, conservatives believe that, or are told that tax cuts spur economic growth with trickle down economics, that lower rates on job creators benefit everyone eventually. Um, Tax complexity stifles businesses. I think government spending is generally wasteful, and success should be rewarded and not punished through taxes. Whereas progressives believe that the system is rigged in favor of the wealthy and corporations. Raising taxes on the wealthy grows the economy by funding investment. Tax cuts increase deficits. The middle class bears disproportionate burden, while the rich get loopholes. And public investment in education, infrastructure, and research creates broadly shared prosperity.
Yep.
So it's like pretty pretty disparate, and none of those things really seem to align. Um, and like even as time has gone on, I have not seen trickle down economics like work for me, you know. Um, and when people actually have tax education,
Right.
their opinions really change, and once they become more sophisticated, they kind of like start to converge. Is what the research has found as well.
Yeah. I mean, I to that point, I know a lot of people that say I'm not for paying taxes at all, and there are other people that
Yeah.
then you're just like, well, then you don't really want a military. You don't really
Mhm.
want these services. You don't really want the museums. You don't really want the public education support. And all of these things, to a certain degree, are phenomenal, right? For our systems and for our country and for our well being, and that has been proven throughout time. If done properly, it actually has incredible benefits. But then on the other side of things too, it's just a full responsibility given to the government to say, hey, I trust you 100% to do with my dollars as you see fit, and I believe that you are the higher moral and ethical being of our land, and you will do with them properly. And we've obviously come to find out that is just not true, because there's plenty of corruption that falls in between, whether intentionally or non-intentionally. And the system has to be constantly monitored, not just by those that create it, but by those that are being taxed, right?
Mhm.
And experiencing it, which is the personal responsibility aspect of this across the board. But you talked about the knowledge crisis. I'm curious to know, though, a little bit more about that specifically, what this knowledge crisis does to people. Does it kind of like what I explained it to be, or is it different in your research?
Yes. So it's it's a kind of a paradox, right? Where people have very strong opinions on
Yeah,
taxes
yeah,
and almost no understanding of what they are or how they work. So I cited earlier that 98% of Americans do not pass a basic tax literacy test. Um, but Stanford actually revealed discovered that Americans' views are surprisingly complicated,
okay,
where 65% of people they polled support a wealth tax, but that 65% collapses to 26% when they learn that a wealth tax might hurt the economy, um, which suggests that people are open to changing their opinions on taxes, and they honestly just want a system that works and not necessarily like worship one form or the other.
right, right. I think the vast majority of people just want a system that works. Honestly,
Well, what people want based on the tax foundation and these other sources is like 88% believe that the tax code needs reform.
yeah,
67% say corporations pay too little, which is a pretty big like progressive rallying cry.
yeah.
Um, let's say like 65% of people think the current tax code is unfair, and oh, I mean, this is a different topic, but like Congress doesn't vote with its constituents and
Yeah.
is as often against the public perception. So it's like when you vote somebody in and you finally say, yes, I get my candidate, they oftentimes vote against them. And on average, 35% of politician votes go against their constituent.
Well, I think a lot of that too, and I could be wrong, just statistically, but a lot of that is probably because of the bills they are voting on are packaged in one way, and
It's
they
true.
present entirely different scenarios deep down within the bill itself, right? Like they're not just passing it to increase the pay of soldiers; they're passing a bill that is titled that, you know, in a way that makes you think as though you're passing a bill to increase the pay of soldiers, but it actually includes 5,000 other items within. And so I'm curious to know, though, how often they are voting based off of the headline of the bill and trying to get that passed, but in some deep form, it also contradicts other beliefs of theirs because of what else is found in that bill, right?
That's a good point. People don't understand that when they say like, "Hey, should we increase the price of or the tax on this for this one issue?" That's
Yep.
never the bill. It's always like you said, like this kind of like give and take for every politician and say like, well, I need like $10 million allocated here. I need 5 million here. I need whatever.
Right.
And you're saying,
They're
okay,
just much more complex than the one
yeah,
item they're supposed to be actually voting on, which is something that, in my opinion, and Thomas Massey's brought this up a number of times, it should be changed to
mm-hmm.
where you only vote on the bill is only regarding one matter. It cannot be regarding multiple matters included in one bill, and that way you're actually voting on the thing that you all are voting on. So
Yeah, that's why you get so many filibusters and fights.
right,
And whenever anything gets passed, it's almost like I don't have the data on that, but basically it's like a shadow of what it was supposed to be.
you just can't keep up with it. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's way too much to keep up with at this point. So the kind of the next part of this too is that we roll into a bit of a trust collapse within the country as well. And I'm not sure if you've gone through these stats or not, but it seems like the vast majority does not trust the government, but there's still certain individuals that do. So can we dive
Hmm.
into that for just a moment?
Yeah. So essentially, it's like in that tiered structure of like,
Yeah,
okay, now that we have these politicians, people do not trust the government at all on either side of the aisle
yeah,
anywhere. So like only 25% of Americans trust the government to spend tax revenues effectively to reduce inequality, including 28% of Democrats. So it's like abysmal. 76% of people agree that, quote, public officials don't care much about what people like me think. 51% view the IRS unfavorably, and 56% believe that the big tax reform in 2017 was passed because it was for donors rather than helping the economy.
right,
Um, and so across the board, people just don't. Well, people know that the tax dollars are not used for them
right,
and are not being used effectively.
right. I am. I'm curious to know, with the amount of money that's been printed too, where that money is really going, right?
So you're
And
yeah you're tying economics into the tax conversation.
correct, correct. And as we continue to print more and more money across the board, I think this is the biggest reason for me, right? The more money that we print, the more I believe less in our tax system, right?
Mm-hmm.
The more I believe less in our need for this tax system. Because I do believe in a need for a tax system. I believe it's a good thing. And I also believe it ties one to a higher um, purpose, and believing in their giving to and supporting a system that is giving back to them and the entire country, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
giving into a system that's not just supporting you, but it's supporting a higher purpose, which is the government that should be doing good deeds. But when your government, not necessarily government, but the Federal Reserve, is printing all of this money, it almost leads you to this belief that none of the things that are being done are actually being done by your dollars. It's being done by a system that's fake and fraudulent, that can pay its own taxes by printing its own money. So I think this is where, for me, a deep guttural feeling of I no longer am paying taxes towards the system because none of that money is actually going towards supporting the country because the system is doing it on its own.
Yeah. Have you talked a lot about printing money recently on other episodes?
A little bit. I mean, I kind of hint at it, but I don't really necessarily dive deep into it. But I think that's the one thing for me. We can talk, data points all day long, but I think fundamentally, when that collapses, right, when your government prints money into oblivion, people start to think, "There's never why would I pay taxes if you're going to continue to print it?"
Yeah, because I'm trying to say here, like, I want to, well, essentially, like when you're printing that much money, when the government prints money,
Yep.
it increases the money supply. It effectively debases or devalues the dollars that you have in your bank account. And if you have like a fixed earning rate at your job, like you make $20 an hour, um, your purchasing power or the amount that $20 buys goes down a lot. And then
Right.
that's where our like rapid inflation has also come from. So,
And therefore, that's the hidden tax.
and then, well, yeah, but then you get taxed on that too.
Right.
So, so it's
right. So you're just like, there's a hidden tax of inflation, and there's the hidden tax. Well, there's then the taxes that you're already aware of. So then increasing the taxes to then print more money, you're just being taxed on everything at that point. And I think this is where it's like, if you own your house outright too, should you even be paying a property tax at that point? And there's a lot of those arguments to be had, but we're being taxed at every single angle, and we don't have free healthcare. We don't have many free things at all, frankly. And there are a lot of organizations and bodies of individuals that are receiving a free pass of sorts. I don't even want to say that, but they're receiving freebies that the majority of the country is not. When, frankly, we could be putting that money to work to give people allowances towards healthcare and other things. And I'm not calling for free healthcare in the country, but when you have a Pentagon that cannot pass an audit for 5 years straight.
Oh, I think it's more. I think it's like 8 or 9.
However many years straight.
Yeah.
And there's just $2 trillion missing. And so when we talk about Somalis in Minnesota, I'm like, okay, guys, it's sure it makes for a good headline, but it's not
it's
even
the tip of the iceberg.
Correct. It's not even the tip of the iceberg.
Like 9.
There's so much money being lost,
and is like a crazy,
an absurd amount of money.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets to me, where I'm at this point where I've realized there might not be fixing of this system. I think this system is on its way out. I think it is collapsing. I know that's probably another conversation for another time, but I think it all ties into taxation in this form, right? Where we talk about increasing taxes. It's like, that's phenomenal. There's no reason to increase the taxes. They're just going to print it anyways at this point.
Yeah. So it's like if you're trying to get like some kind of like what's the point of this conversation, I honestly think like explaining, I would encourage people to go to the Tax Foundation website and just get some basics on tax literacy, because then when they see their grocery bill or they see headlines or they go up to the ballot in the midterms, they can say, all right, what are these people voting for? And I think they should pay more attention to who the president is looking at to run the Federal Reserve. They should like learn why it's an independent organization. If it's an independent organization, why the current like Jerome Powell has been printing so much money. Those things are very boring compared to war and social justice, and but they have like a much bigger effect on your day to day and your ability to grow wealth and like take care of your family. And when you can ask those pointed questions of your politicians who are your employees, then that lets you vote and understand when they're either letting you down or, because like face it, it's people like, I mean, there's probably like 1,000 great articles about this topic that people just won't read because it's not as fun or inflammatory.
So we have to make it a little bit inflammatory.
Maybe Clay can like have like a shooting flames somewhere, like in post.
So we have to make it a little bit inflammatory. But I think about it from like a small business perspective too. And I think all the small businesses that are trying to survive, and especially if you look at like a a state like California, right, that has continued to increase their taxes over time. Like California is obviously is one of the largest economies in the entire world, right? They're absolutely crushing it. But very different approach to taxes than like a Texas per se or a Florida, which are also very very large economies. But think about it from like a small business perspective. If you're a small business and you can pay your your hourly employees, or you can pay your W-2 employees a certain amount of money, when your taxes increase, you can't really pay them that amount anymore. You have to offshore things. You can't really bring things into the country. So I think a lot of this has to do with being able to bring out build up the U.S. economic position as well. When your taxes increase internally, you have to figure out ways to bring down costs elsewhere because you're paying so much into a system that might not be giving you what you need as an organization. And obviously, there's a lot of tax benefits that come with being a business owner and write-offs and other things as well. But I think the whole thing is it impacts the way that we operate on a daily basis. It operates the way that small business owners interact with their employees, and ultimately impacts the overall emotional state of the country as well. Right, when you're being taxed into oblivion and you feel like none of your dollars are actually being spent to support you as an organization.
Yeah, I mean, like, and it's a tough example, especially like with California business owners, because they get like they continue to perform very well, and their
Yeah,
businesses continue to grow, and then they start shouldering a larger and larger and larger portion of the overall tax revenue of the state,
yeah,
because everything is getting more expensive for the reasons that we talked about earlier. And then when their taxes get increased, they can see them going to, like, obviously, like, I'm not a huge fan of Gavin Newsom, his like homeless like endeavor, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars or tens of billions of dollars like gone over the last 15 years, and that didn't go anywhere. And as a business owner in California, you're saying, okay, so you're literally just buying drugs with my money and hurting our citizens or whatever.
right.
So I could say that, I don't know, that's a little bit more inflammatory, but that's like a use case, like where the taxes are still having to come from somewhere, and that's why you're seeing mass exodus of those business owners.
Yeah, and it's like a Tesla and anyways other organizations as well. But I do think about it though, and well, I'm going to look up specifically because I want to make sure I get this correct here. But under we're going to take our time on this. There's no need to rush it. It's okay.
Yeah, well, in that case, I'm gonna double check that number on the homeless thing.
Yeah. So under LBJ, the Revenue Act of 1964, the top individual tax rate was 91% to 70%, 70% to 91%. So, and the corporate tax rate was 52% ish. 48% says 48% to 52%. But that period of time led to really strong economic expansion in the 1960s, rising GDP and falling unemployment. So there's this craziness that's like, okay, we have a tax rate of 91% in this country. So your large organizations actually are giving their fair share and then some. And at that time, that did lead to things like Medicare, Medicaid, education, anti-poverty. This was also around the Vietnam War escalation period as well. But there were certain things that I would consider to not be great programs nowadays because there's a lot of waste and corruption within. But at the time, they were seen as very good organizations that helped to bring the country out of a kind of a poor period, right? Especially post World War II, rebuilding era. A lot of lots of money was there, and the government was supplying a lot of this to build up the country after a period of intense patriotism. So you almost have to think, okay, well, a lot of this money went to good organizations at the time, or seemingly good organizations, but now 50, 60, 70 years later, we're experiencing the negative aspects of these government organizations. Especially when I think about us potentially getting Social Security. I don't think that's going to be a thing for us in the next 15, 20 years. Personally, I think we're going to run out of it. But they all sound good in theory when they're being put into place. And with high taxes, you can do that. You can create these kinds of organizations. But with low taxes, the government can't do that. So it really is such a weird fine line and a teetering of sorts between, like, I want to give back and I want people to have, but I don't want us to not be able to audit the Pentagon and our government for these trillions of dollars that are going to waste.
Well, that's where I think like the big thing there is aligned versus misaligned incentives.
Yep.
So you have like with the like people always look at Norway or the Nordic countries as like really high taxes,
Yep.
but also really high quality of life. Well, people in those countries say, "Well, I know where my tax dollars are going, and I can like see it every day. Like they can see these roads, they can see Norway's national pension fund is like the best hedge fund on the planet. Like they have created like hundreds of billions of dollars over decades for their citizens. So instead of it being social security, it's actually like they invest the tax dollars or krones or whatever, the euros,
Yep.
and the citizens can see what that fund is worth. Whereas in America, like the Social Security fund is just a slush fund for whatever program wants to pull from it, and it's basically a pyramid scheme. So when the politicians and the citizens don't have alignment on where those taxes are going, that's where you see that like huge disparity between like the positives of higher taxes in that
Yeah.
example
Yeah.
and like the reality that we have outside.
Yeah. And just make sure I don't misspeak here too. Social Security was obviously created underneath FDR. And then obviously other organizations were created under LBJ. But the tax rate under FDR too, especially peak years, World War II, was 94% as well.
Yeah,
But I think you have to have a country that really believes in the work it's doing, right? They believe in the mission, right? And you're willing to give your money to the mission as long as you believe in the mission of your country and your organization. But when you're taxed that amount of money and you don't believe in what it's going towards, that's when people start to revolt and push back. We're
yeah,
definitely seeing that
100%.
nowadays.
Yeah, we are because it's just it's a. I think there's like layers of polarization where people don't even by design know what their tax rate is or
Yeah.
why it is what it is.
Yeah. That was actually a marginal rate too. So only income above a very high threshold. So wealthy individuals use deductions, exemptions, and shelters. So effective rates were much lower, but above a certain threshold, people would pay the 94% on all of their income. Just still
Yeah.
crazy though to think that
That's
at a certain point you were paying that amount of money. So Elon Musk would be paying 94% right now.
he would. Yeah. I mean, and that's where it's like, does he actually have an income or is it just like equity compensation?
It's vast majority.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
I'm sure they'd find a way to skirt around it regardless. And I think that's the other part of it too. Like when you start talking about a tax system, are we just going to find ways to get around it regardless? Or are people just going to continue to find ways to get around it? But my biggest question is, does the tax dollars that the retail investor, that the normal average Joe gives into the system, does it actually make a difference at the end of the day? Or is the amount of money they've printed and the amount of the bonds that the country has issued, and is that really where the money is coming from instead?
I mean, I think it depends on where, like, what programs you're looking for, because the dollar still has to represent some form of like work or value, you know?
Yeah. So where do we see things going from here, Justin?
I mean, I think it's going to get. I don't know if it's going to be like a nice posh data driven debate. I think it's going to be kind of nasty when it comes to people realizing that the government is like spending them essentially to the point of they can't build wealth or they definitely can't keep their dollars in a bank account, right?
Yep. Yep. You had some good questions here. Can a representative democracy function when? And I think this is a really good area for us to discuss kind of what the unfinished revolution, what this potential revolution looks like moving forward too.
Yeah, I mean, I think like again, it's misaligned incentives. I think that whenever you go into like drain the swamp wins. So it's like do you like nuke the swamp? I don't know. Like
It also seems like every 4 years it's going to be like each party's trying to drain the swamp back and forth now. Everybody's trying to drain the swamp.
It's true, but I think like obviously like Elon said on that podcast, like would he do Doge again? He was like, no, it's so corrupt that like when you show them the numbers, they tell you to hide it, and like, and that's
So
like a
bad.
I think a bipartisan thing, right? Like it's like
Yep.
your tax dollars are so needed by selfish, corrupt people that exposing who owns them, is even the richest guy in the world can't budget.
Well,
But like what you can do today is like start investing, get financial education, learn what taxes are. If you are self-employed, like something I learned this year, which is obviously like not tax advice, is if you have self-employment income, you can fund a self-employment 401k from the side of you're the business owner and the employee, and that can help with your tax bill. Um, Read all of the like deductions that you're entitled to. Like everything on TurboTax is free to read. So I would like educate yourself on your personal taxes.
would you suggest that people get small business owners get a CPA or just do their own taxes?
I think if you can get a CPA, you should, and you should ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
People don't. I mean, as a consumer, you don't want to think about that stuff, but I think you should also like understand, like a lot of high earning people, a lot of actors or business owners like have gone bankrupt because their accountant did some shady stuff.
Right.
I think accountants are good, but I think that they should also be able to present you with how your financial health is and
Right.
things like
Right.
that.
I agree. I agree. When it comes to CPAs, I think there's a couple different kinds of CPAs. There's one CPA that goes by the book on everything, and there's another CPA that goes by the book, but then also knows how to play in the gray area properly without getting you in trouble. So I would say my comment to that would be to work with different CPAs to find one that works is best suited for you based off the business that you're in too. Because some CPAs don't even understand how real estate tax write-offs work, and harboring them under certain entities, LLCs, so on and so forth, and properly setting them up. So make sure you talk to multiple CPAs, especially if you find something online that you see other people doing, and your CPA says, "No, I would never do that." Maybe talk to another CPA. It might be worth the conversation just to see if you can do it legally.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would just say like if you see something on social media about like the tax code,
Yep.
um, definitely have a licensed CPA like answer that question.
Not ChatGPT.
No, I would not. I would not. I mean, like you do whatever you want, but like I think you should if you're gonna file taxes, especially at if you have a large income or something like that,
Yep.
like find an accountant who's aligned with like helping you tax plan and not just catch up on what you already did.
Right. Justin, anything you want to add as we part ways today after this post this tax conversation, tax
Yeah,
and economics conversation? I think I'm just more fed up with the fact that they're printing money all the time, and it's a taxation in and of itself. And I don't think people realize that. I say people. It seems like a lot of people don't realize that, and so we have to find ourselves investing in metals and other very risky assets like cryptocurrency to try and avoid this the inflation of our dollar. So
yeah. I mean, I would just really encourage people to read, like, learn the tax foundation website stuff, like get financially literate, and get really into the idea that no one's going to save you, and that like you're going to have to pay taxes. Like those are the only two certainties in life are death and taxes. So if you're going to have to pay them, like learn how they work and get yourself set up so that you can build wealth and not go broke.
because at this time we still have to pay taxes, and there's no way you found around taxes quite yet.
No, I have
Yeah,
not. I mean, if you can
you can
resist.
avoid taxes if done properly, and the legal and there's plenty of legal ways to avoid taxes, but just not paying taxes is something we still can't do, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I'm not on that camp. I
But
would.
it's not just me though. I'm not the only one seeing all these videos though. People saying I don't
I
have to pay
mean,
my taxes. It's
if
my
if there
legal
was
like
like a real revolution where we would all like withhold paying taxes to like go against the government, I totally would. But it's just that movement is not big enough yet.
definitely not big enough. I agree. I agree. Well, Justin, I appreciate the time. This was a fun one. I'm gonna share a lot of information in the show notes, especially the Carls
Oh yeah.
and Barchart. If there's anything else you want me to share too, I'm more than happy to do so. This was also a conversation at the end of a long work day too, so maybe I was a little bit on edge during today's chat, just a little bit.
Nah, not at all.
But it was a good one. It was a good one. Anything else you want to add before we part ways?
Maybe like I'm happy to share. Is there a way we can make this notes document like downloadable as a PDF
Yeah,
for
we can
people?
definitely attach it.
Yeah, because I think if we can make this whole thing into a PDF, people could see like all the sources and the research. Because I we did try to put this into like a cohesive narrative, but
Yeah,
it
we jumped around.
it's not a fun conversation if you just read from the script. So
It's not a fun conversation if you read from a script, and I know that we were trying our best to do that to a certain degree to follow along, but I am 100% going to attach this as a PDF so that people can review it, and you also need to put your name on it too because this is your creation.
yeah, I mean we did this like together and stuff. So it's just like it was just finding a ton of
Research.
research. Because if anybody like hopefully gets like mad enough about this episode to like ask a question, then they can start there.
Yeah, well, also if they're like, oh, they're just blabbing on about taxation in this country and how upset they are. It's like, well, here you go. Here's the actual research. Here's the information you were maybe looking for.
Hang on. Yeah, there's just a couple of stats that I do want to close with because I think that as like citizens, we should have expectations of our representatives.
Yep.
And just like I want to pull up, there's a statistics, just like it's disgusting how little our politicians care about us, and I want to pull up the stat for that.
Do any of our politicians actually care about us at all?
I think Thomas Massey does.
There are a couple.
There are a couple. I'm gonna try to find it. Where is it? Where did it go? Oh, okay. So, based on one of these studies is like 100 years long. Congress aligns with public opinion 55% of the time overall. The Senate passes only 54% of popular bills. Politicians vote against constituent will 35% of the time. And when ideology conflicts with public opinion, politicians follow ideology 71% of the time. 80% of the laws that do pass have majority support, but many popular laws never pass at all. So there's a Yale researcher that said public opinion can behave like ocean tides. When support grows large enough, it can be very powerful pressure on the institution, though maybe not as fast as a lot of voters might want. So it's not saying that people are right when things are popular, but people should expect their representatives to vote on their behalf.
And they are not.
And they are not.
So I think one of the biggest things for me too is it relates to holding our representatives accountable, and a lot of people don't like to do this, but this is kind of my area. It would be to actually reach out and have conversations with their office, especially concerning topics that you're interested in. More specifically, call them, leave them messages. They get them, bombard them. Call people in your area, have them call their office, have them leave a message. Do as best as you possibly can. Another part of it too is if somebody's not doing what they say they're going to do, share that information online if you have the time to. Doesn't mean you need to get involved in every little thing, but share that information online and make people aware of it because you're supposed to be represented properly. And if you don't share how you feel, then it's hard for them to represent you properly as well.
Yeah, it is real. I've had like, obviously you have a lot of experience with this too, but I've had like coffee with the mayor Charleston before. I've gone to Tim Scott's office when I was in Washington D.C. and he hung out with us for like 15 minutes. Like they will, like you can, if you talk to them, just try not to like waste your shot with a crazy gotcha. Like ask them like a real question, so that they can think about it.
100%. Well, I once again I appreciate the time this evening. This was fun. and looking forward to covering other topics in future episodes. Once again, two average Joes discussing a
Yes.
topic that we are not experts on,
Not
but
financial
have
advice,
done
not
a
tax
good amount of
advice.
research on across the board, and obviously used plenty of resources online to help support our frustrations, I guess is a good way to put it. I know that I approach this kind of from an aggressive American that it doesn't want to pay taxes anymore, and you help to bring in the intellectual and more methodical approach to this conversation. I think that's very helpful to get both sides of it. But what I was more or less portraying is, I think, a lot of how Americans are feeling at a deep guttural level right now, and frankly don't really know where to go or how to explain their frustrations, except for just sharing online that they don't want to pay taxes anymore. But there are good things about taxes. Taxes can be used and should be used properly to support the overall health and well-being. I'll say health, the well-being of the nation and the state and the local government. But we are not seeing that anymore. So
No, definitely
changes in order, to
for
say the
sure.
least.
Yeah, no, I'm an angry American too. I just want to make sure that people like it's been a long, like, every generation has, I think, their kind of like wake up moment.
Yep.
And I feel like this is kind of like our Vietnam era of our generation, I guess.
It's time to discuss it more openly
For sure.
and get more educated on it, which I'm not claiming to be the most educated on any of these topics, but the research is being done and people are starting to wake up, which is beautiful. So thank you for doing a lot of this research and helping to bring this whole thing together. This is
For sure.
phenomenal.
It was awesome.
All righty. Well, I will talk to you soon, and go check out the Carls on Saturday night.
Yes, Royal American.
Talk soon.